to stall trial fail. 4 years after the crime, Tarun Tejpal charged with rape, sexual harassment and wrongful restraint. Big relief for owners of Ryan School. Punjab and Haryana High Court stays arrest until October 7th, but asks Pintos to join the investigation. In the name of religion, Love Ke Dushman have struck again. Bajrang Dal disrupts an interfaith marriage, even thrashes cops. A day after Yashwant Sinha slammed the government over the slowdown in the economy, his son and Union Minister Jayant Sinha defends the government's record. In times of high fuel prices, government speaks of home delivery for fuel. Is the idea outrageous or groundbreaking? Big debate tonight at 9 p.m. Journalist Chakravarti Chandrachud questioned by the SIT in connection with Gauri Lankesh murder case. Who is helping Dera Chief's close aide, Hanipreet Insan? Haryana SIT chief now floats a spy theory, claims someone from the police is leaking information on raids conducted to nab Hanipreet. First, he downplays sexual harassment of students. Now he lectures on dignity, asks students why they raise such matters in the open. When will Banaras Hindu University's Vice-Chancellor give in his papers? You're watching The Big Story with me, Avni Raja. Let's straight get to the big story that we're tracking. Call it outrageous or groundbreaking, whichever way you look at it. But the government seems upbeat about the idea. Now, the Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister, Dharmendra Pradhan, on Wednesday announced that you could get your fuel delivered at home. That's right, you heard that right. Like any other household or fashion product that is just a click away, Petrol too will soon be able to be ordered online. As bizarre as this may sound, the government said it could leverage the advancements in the telecom and IT sector to start home delivery of fuel. Listen in.
क्या हम इसको आपकी IT और मोबाइल प्लेटफॉर्म पे जोड़ सकते हैं? जोड़ने से फायदा सभी को है। आपकी व्यवसाय बढ़ेगा, आपकी 3 लाख करोड़ की व्यवसाय शायद 4 लाख करोड़ हो सकता है। शायद गूगल ने भी कहा कि भारत की टॉप नॉच की विद्यार्थी नौकरी करना नहीं चाहते हैं, इनोवेशन में जाना चाहते हैं। अभी हम लोगों ने तय किया और हमने संबंधित विभागों से भी अनुमति ले लिया है। हम सारे पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट को ई-कॉमर्स की प्लेटफॉर्म पे रखेंगे।
All right, let's go across to Srija, who's joining me live at this point. Srija, you've been talking to a lot of people. There are a lot of questions, of course, with respect to this whole initiative of the government of having petrol and diesel delivered to your homes. First of all, what's the sense you're getting? What are people saying?
Right, Avni, this might be a very great move by the union government. Remember that they are trying to push for digital transaction. But I don't think really this has gone down well with the citizens here, especially Bengaluru is concerned, Bengaluru per se, because what they're telling is that they're the layman, and what they're asking is that as long as the prices of the petrol and the diesel is decreased, that is more than enough. They are not actually looking at doorstep delivery of the petroleum products. Now, going by what Dharmendra Pradhan has told the Petroleum Ministry, that he will be soon launching the e-commerce websites, will soon have all the petroleum products, definitely not just the LPG, but also the petrol and the diesel. But the question that needs to be asked, the laws as far as the Petroleum Act of 2002, does that permit really for petroleum products, the inflammable products, to be sold online? Now, what are the kind of, in fact, remember the concerns that are coming from the citizens. The one question that they are asking is about the hazards involved as far as the delivery of petrol is concerned. Now, the delivering of petrol, it can be also unadulterated. Who is going to check that? The first thing. The second also being it's explosive. Also, it can be misused. Remember the Molotov cocktails that we're talking about. Also, the national security is going to be compromised. Now, who is going to be answerable for that? Also, now I would like to make a point, going by the Petroleum Act of 2002 makes it very clear. Now, the petroleum products of Class A, that is petrol, and Class B, the kerosene and diesel, will not be permitted to, in fact, transferable, especially at an unlicensed point. Now, clearly, we're talking about the delivery of petroleum products. Clearly, the residential areas, what we're talking about is the congested areas. They're going by the Act. The Act itself does not allow for it. So how is exactly the Petroleum Ministry looking at it? We have to really wait and watch.
Right. In fact, as you said, Shrija, a lot of questions that still need to be answered. But we asked people in 3 different cities what they feel about the government's move. Take a look at what they had to say.
I think it's just a gimmick which makes no sense at all. I have no problem in going to the petrol bunk and buying it. I just want it at a cheaper price than what they keep to be increasing every time.
I don't think it is preferable online because the time of delivery and you cannot take your car there and get it filled. It is not going to work.
A common man is going to suffer. He's going to suffer a lot.
I want fuel at a cheaper price at the pump. Okay. I'd rather save money than have it at home.
I would prefer petrol to be lower at this same place only, rather than I get a home delivery for a more expensive price.
हमको यहीं पे कम भाव में चाहिए, क्योंकि हम लोग इतना कमाते नहीं हैं कि इतना कर सकें, ठीक है ना. रोज़ कभी 70 होता है, कभी 75 हो जाता है, और दूसरी कंट्रीज़ में इतना सस्ता है, एक हमारे देश में इतना महंगा है.
पेट्रोल पंप पे ही हमें कम में चाहिए.
पेट्रोल डीजल का भाव कम हो जाएगा, क्योंकि घर आएंगे तो घर आने से हमें क्या फ़ायदा, वहाँ जाके डलवा लेंगे अगर पैसे कम में होगा तो.
I would never suggest home delivery. This is very risky for people and family. For normal people, I don't think, but family members, I don't think so.
I would prefer cheaper fuel rather than home.
डिलीवरी भूल जाइए, बहुत यहाँ हिंदुस्तान है ये, आपको मालूम है कितने प्रकार के गलत लोग यूज़ कर रहे हैं. बेटर रेट कम करे तो अच्छा है. ये अभी मिडिल क्लास का मेन चीज़ है. अब सब में से निकालते जाओगे तो मिडिल क्लास कहाँ जाए.
कुछ भी क्राइम हो सकता है, कुछ भी हो सकता है, 2 नंबर का इशू भी हो सकता है.
All right, host of voices there. Obviously, the key concern on everyone's minds is the rising cost of fuel, and not, as one of the people there put it, as a gimmick with the government is trying to do in having this home delivery of petrol and diesel. All right, let me get to our guest, Ravi Gururaj, a serial entrepreneur who's joining me on the show. Thank you very much, Ravi, for joining in. Before we get into the specifics of whether or not this is implementable by e-commerce companies, how would all of that happen, your initial reaction to something like this and the fact that it's going to be eventually sold through these e-commerce platforms and home delivered?
So I think the reaction that, safety is one thing that must be paramount, and I agree with that. I think, people will look to make sure that any home delivery is safe, first and foremost. I think there will over time be a huge value in terms of convenience. I think people may not see that right off, but, for instance, you will eventually have IoT-enabled cars. The cap on your petrol tank will be something you can authorize somebody to fill up during the night in where you parked your car. So that will actually help decongest the roads. It is inconvenient. I mean, who enjoys going to a petrol pump just to fill the car, right? If the car could just be filled at the touch of a button and you were assured of quality, you were assured of the price being as low as anywhere else, it was convenient to you, it makes sense. I think, it'll take a little bit of time. I think the fact that the minister has opened this up for innovation is a good first step. I think we need to make sure security is paramount and that, quality and price are not compromised, right?
Right.
If those can be achieved all in one swoop, I think it'll be a great step towards, kind of innovating in this section.
Ravi, the question from an e-tailer, from an e-commerce platform point of view, as to what would they sort of look for before onboarding something like this in terms of petrol and diesel, and also taking the responsibility of having it delivered, what would they be looking for in terms of clearances, in terms of the most crucial aspect of safety?
Yeah, I think, they'll need to make sure that, there's regulatory clearance, that they can do the process and the supply chain. I think they'd have to work with the existing petrol dealers, the pump network that's already probably out there and find a way to do that last mile delivery, right, of this. That infrastructure will take some time to roll out, and I'm sure they'll look into it. But it's something you do periodically. It's a pretty high wallet spend. It's a buy that you make where you do want convenience, you want to ensure quality, but at the same time, we need to make sure that safety is paramount, right? So if we can achieve that balance, I think the e-commerce companies will start looking at this as one more share of wallet, one more area in which they can have stickiness with their customers, where they can deliver something of convenience, right?
Right. And in terms of infrastructure, like you mentioned, the kind of supply chain, the infrastructure that they would be looking for, what exactly would be required to implement something like this?
Yeah, I think that will have to be determined. And I think, the fact that you've now allowed the innovation to happen will result in, you may get nano petrol stations, you may get mobile petrol stations, you may get other ways in which, cars can be refilled in parking lots at night, various things like that. All of those innovations can be brought into play. For instance, school buses often have to go to the petrol pump to get their refill, right? At this point, if you could have a mobile petrol station, you could refill school buses in the night without having to drive every one of them to a petrol station, right? So those would be some of the benefits, right, of this kind of innovation being made possible going forward.
All right, Shrija, coming back to you, what we heard from people across the board in multiple cities, the key concern really is the rising fuel prices, and nobody at this point seems to be taking into what the government is trying to offer in terms of home delivery of these of petrol and diesel.
Exactly, Avni. In fact, the concern of the layman here is only about the prices. Remember that since June of this year, we have seen how fuel prices have been fluctuating. And ever since then, people have felt the pinch and they have definitely voiced their opinion, but they don't have a choice and they're put up with it. Now, again, coming up with, as far as the delivery service is concerned, delivering the petroleum products at the doorstep now definitely raises huge concerns. Now, remember, we're talking about the license. How are they getting the licenses? Are they these laws are going to be compromised only because of the vested interest? Now, who exactly is going to benefit if exactly they're not catering to the audience here, if they're not catering to the consumers here? Remember that each consumer that we're talking about here is a 4 lakh consumer, is as against about 1 lakh retail outlets of the petroleum outlets, is equal to almost about 6 lakh turnover every year is what we're talking about. The turnover that we're talking about is 6 lakhs. This is per 4 lakh consumers. But remember that definitely consumers are really not looking at home delivery service. What they're telling is that even if you're going to wait at the petrol pump, it is going to be the same. But all that they're asking for from the union government is to reduce the prices, but which clearly that has not been happening over the last few months.
Ravi, coming back to you, another question I had was there was already a startup in Bengaluru which had attempted to do this home delivery of petrol. That, of course, has now been shut down because it was in violation of certain rules and regulations. But there was a startup that began with the same goal in mind. Going forward, once the government really puts in place these rules and regulations, figures out how to make it safe and implement this entire thing, do you think that from a startup perspective, you could actually see more such companies emerging who will take up this particular model?
Yeah, so I think it won't just be startups. It'll be the petrol dealers themselves who'll do it. I think they'll have just as big an opportunity to go, provide this kind of service. I think the larger companies, the Shells, the BPs, the Indian Oils, all of those will also provide the service, I guess, right? I mean, I don't think it's necessarily only startups, but I'm sure there'll be innovation from all fronts if this was allowed and, enabled by the government.
All right, I'm being joined on the phone line by Ravindra from the Petroleum Association. Thank you very much, Mr. Nath, for joining in. Your initial reaction to this move by the government of making home delivering petrol and diesel?
See, the first thing is this: whether this project is going to be successful or people are going to welcome this is the most important thing. The first thing is the PESO, which is the most important organization of the petroleum sector distribution. They have to give a permission for the containers, and the containers are not going to be a plastic container or something like that. It should be a stubborn container in which the petrol or the diesel, the diesel. They say the petrol, they are not interested in doing it because it's a volatile product, and the problem of safety is always there with petrol, but they are trying to do it with diesel. Granting that what is the cost of the container, what is the cost of transportation, and what cost the consumer is going to get. When the consumer can get across just in a matter of just 10 minutes or 5 minutes drive from wherever you are there, the product is available throughout the country. I cannot see what is the fun in just doing all these things. What is the minister aiming at? What for he is doing all these things? And is there any sanity in this? And is it going to be a welcome gesture on the part of the consumers? And this 20 liters or 30, what is the kind of containers? Today, now with the entire, whatever you call as the PESO, that is the safety organization, has banned this so-called as bowsers or something like that, which are all doing all sorts of illegal activities. All right. One more thing is this. How about the quality and the quantity that is being supplied? Who are the suppliers? He says that he is going to see that it is supplied from where? The petrol pumps, why should they give? When the customer is able to get it very sure, at his own request. And what is that diesel? 1 liter, 2 liters they take in 20 liters, 30 liters. Each product is going to cost 3 rupees or 4 rupees more than the market rate. Why the gentleman should take it? Can he not go one day earlier or so, something like that, and get the product full in his tank and then be happy with it and be safe in his transaction? And one more thing is, whatever may be the thing, the petroleum product is a hazard product. Knowingly keeping it in a place where there is going to be a danger for fire, it is not a welcome gesture. Sophisticated countries, where is this? There is no sophisticated country which is using all these things. It is only, I don't know, who is giving this kind of information to our minister, and why is he driving at it, and what are the amounts of other things that are to be taken care of? Is it going to be, financially is it sound, and what will be the cost of it? Please think over.
So there are a lot of questions, of course, that remain unanswered at this point. But from assuming that the licensing rules, the government, does work with the entire licensing rules, work around it, and make this possible to implement. From the implementation perspective, from the petrol pump owners' perspective, how would this entire thing work?
If it is going to be a successful attempt, we don't mind anything, because after all, we are dealers and we want business. We are businessmen. As long as the business is there and the profitability is there, without much of a risk of whatever you call as the personal risk, or the man who is going to carry the product for him, insurance and other things, if all these things are there, if it is going to be a successful story, let them do it. We are not against anything. Why should we be against it? If it is going to be a profitable perspective and also a most safe perspective. Hello.
Right. Mr. Dharmendra, who would you say would be the main beneficiaries? Do you believe that it would be mainly the companies who would be the big beneficiaries, because they don't have to then invest in the land for opening up a petrol pump, and they can just work on the delivery model?
Madam, I'm telling you one thing. The first thing is this. If it is going to be a successful story, or it is going to be whatever you call as a model, why other countries where there is so much of other products are available, why they are not doing it? Why only now, all of a sudden, only because the minister has come across certain things and he has made an announcement that is going to be done? Is it going to be on the prestige issue of the government, or it is for the sake of the public? Please think over. We should not be only for the sake of the prestige of the minister or the prestige of the government, because they have announced we are doing this. That is not the thing. Pros and consequences and everything should be properly analyzed by the experts and also by the public, and then put into practice. Then things will become all right. Otherwise, just because, yes, I have a fancy to do certain things, whether it is going to be successful, whether it is going to be economical, or it is going to be whatever you call as safe, all these things have got to be discussed at length and then introduced. Just because of some fancy to do it, it may be a successful story, or it may be a story which is. And one more thing is, today, in this country where there is so much of terrorism going on throughout the country? How can you give a product which is there, which is going to cause fire and get it stored in their houses or in their whatever you call garages or something like that? Think over, madam. You understand what is the calamity that is going on because of so much of what you call terrorism? Can we think on those lines also?
Right.
It's not just because the whims and fancy of one person that this can be introduced.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ravindranath, for joining us with your comments on this whole thing. Ravi, just coming back to you for a comment. Essentially, you believe that this is an innovation and it is a step in the right direction, perhaps from an innovation perspective, what the government is trying to do.
Yeah, so I think, listen, I agree with the comments that, it must be implemented safely, that it must be within the regulations. I think, we should not allow any kind of security concerns to override. I think all of those, within the framework of all of that, I think, we should be allowed to innovate to bring more efficiency, bring more convenience, bring lower cost, bring more, access to this for everybody, right? There may be circumstances where people have to drive many miles to get to the right petrol station. Now it might be easier than, trying to get a petrol station near you, right? There may be some efficiencies there. There may be things that we can do in the nighttime delivery directly into the vehicles. I don't think anybody is suggesting something that is going to be dangerous, that's going to be, violate security norms and all of that. I think it's more about going cashless, going direct to the consumer, making it more convenient, cutting out queues, getting rid of some of the wastage that in time and effort people put in to try and get their cars filled for something that's really a mundane task, right? That nobody really wants to line up at a petrol station to fill gas if it could just be done at the press of a button. I think that's just thinking out many years. And I think, hopefully the petrol dealers themselves will build this network out and benefit the greatest from this new innovation opportunity that they have.
All right. Thanks very much, Ravi, for joining us, and Srija as well. Of course, there's still a lot of questions unanswered. We'll have to wait and watch as to how this whole thing gets implemented, whether it is a real innovation coming from the government or is it just a diversion tactic from the root, the real problem, which is high fuel prices that on ground today people are concerned about. All that and more is going to be debated again as well at 9 p.m. with Faith D'Souza. So stay tuned for that. Time now for a quick break. More on the other side.